Good night, Cleveland.
Well, we can all go home now. In a few minutes. Yeah. Wow. Thanks to Jerry and Jimmy's song, brought back a memory of another song that I haven't heard in probably decades. But I want to share just 2 lines from that song, and it's so copacetic, so weaves in to what everyone has been sharing with us so far today. The message from the heart, the daily word, the music, and especially the most recent song. Love is a circle. The 2 lines that I'm recalling are, your eyes reflect all the things I can't see. My eyes reflect all your beauty. And then it goes on. I don't know the words in between. We could look them up sometime. And then that lead line in verse. My eyes reflect all the things you can't see. Your eyes reflect all my beauty. Isn't that lovely? Yeah. Oh my gosh. Indeed, our eyes, as the old prophets and the mystics claim and name, and we know from today forward even more and more in our very being, our eyes are the windows of our souls. And so that as we look out and view and witness and be witnessed, it is that God self that we look out at. And we can remember that as he or she looks back our way, they too are beholding for God's self. If more of us would do that frequently, what would end? War, discontent, the difficulties and upsets of all kinds would just head away, wouldn't they? Just finding this river, this place of harmony and balance. So that's more than wishful thinking, by the way, because it all starts with us. It all starts right here, right in here and right here. Being that change that we want to see him. Beholding the God self in the other and remembering that they are doing the same. Wow, what a recipe for success. Now, none of that was planned in my talk. And we're halfway through. Oh my gosh. Today, the focus in embracing and supporting the title that John had mentioned of the talk this hour. First of all, I'm glad that the title didn't scare anybody off. You came anyway. Yeah, about you want a physicist to talk at your funeral. Wow, how much of an upper can that be? Not sure. Don't know. Well, we'll see. We're about to find out. I came across, as I was preparing this talk, a quote, one of the many pearls that Albert Einstein has shared with us throughout the course of his lifetime, and I think even new discoveries and quotes and things that he has said continue to find their way further out and into lots of different circles. And this one came into my circle. And now it's going to be in our circle because I liked it so much. I'm going to ask the ushers to come forward, and they're going to pass out. I made these cards up for each and every one of us. So here's the quote. So while we share the quote, I'm going to ask the ushers to come up. Sorry I didn't cue you in advance about this, but I kind of can do that. And take a card. And there might even be enough for 2 cards. If you want to take one for a loved one that's not here with you. Because I printed up 100 and there's not quite 100 of us in here. Here's the quote. The most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation of the mystical. It is the power of all true science. Whoa. Once more through. The most beautiful and profound emotion we can experience is the sensation. Notice he doesn't say the thought. He says the sensation, the experience felt inside and throughout each and every one of us, the sensation of the mystical. It, in fact, is the power of all true science. Thank you, Dr. Einstein. Thank you. Now, on the other side of the card, we're drawing from the support today of two scientists and Buddha. So that was the first scientist. And now kind of a Buddha-like thing is on the other side of your card. And once again, when I found out it only cost $2.50 to print on both sides of the card, I really wanted us all to have this information. Because it so fits with this entire day. It so fits with this entire spiritual center. I'm going to say it through once, and then we're all going to say it together. We're going to bookend our time together, beginning and end of my part of our time together, with this affirmation. Let me go through it once first. I am an infinite being on an eternal journey. Together. I am an infinite being on an eternal journey. Whoa. For me, if I were put in a corner and challenged to come up with just one statement, just one, to define or encapsulate the truth of who and what we are as journeying presences on the face of the earth, or as our indigenous friends have taught us, upon Mother Earth, I don't know that I need to look any further. A lot of other things we could say. Unity is replete with wonderful and empowering affirmations. Many of us know that. But this one, being in the remembrance of, I am real. Infinite beings on an eternal journey. I don't know about you, but that lightens my load. It does. Brings an enormous sense of freedom. Freedom from what? Freedom from my mind chatter that attempts to argue differently. Freedom from what Eckhart Tolle calls that egoic presence that we all have as part of our psyche that can, for sometimes in all of our lives, can get loud, can start to try to argue and be the antithesis of peace and joy and love. Can attempt to convince us that we're not this. And affirmations, and this one in particular for me, with a deep breath, it sends the ego packing, at least for a little while. And it's always going to come back and try again, isn't it? I mean, mine has for 60-some years. But it doesn't stay, that nemesis, that not so good, or that you should have done more, or it could have been different, or you're really apart from God. Falsity can't take up much room for very long when we just remind ourselves of the truth of who we are. The other scientist today is written about in physics, and through an article that a dear friend of mine, a colleague of mine, she's a minister, and she's an advisor and a life coach, and a businesswoman to boot. Her name is Mary Maisie Ireland. She lives in the Black Hills of South Dakota. Having lunch one day with Mary, she just had a copy of this short little article. It's only 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs long, and I'm going to read it. I don't usually read quite this much. I just can't help myself or ourselves because it's so gripping. It was brought me a brand new orientation of not only are we spiritual beings having human experiences, but also there's an eternal nature to our physicality that I hadn't really thought of until encountering these words. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. It's by Aaron Freeman, a NPR commentator. So allow these words, and I'm going to pause between the paragraphs just for all of us to take a couple of extra breaths and let the words and the message linger. So I'll just allow 1 or 2 seconds between paragraphs of silence. You want a physicist to speak at your funeral. You want the physicist to talk to your grieving family about the conservation of energy, so they will understand that your energy has not died. You want the physicist to remind your sobbing mother about the first law of thermodynamics, that no energy gets created in the universe and none is destroyed. You want your mother to know that all your energy, every vibration, every BTU of heat, every wave of every particle that was her beloved child remains with her in this world. You want the physicist to tell your weeping father that amid energies of the cosmos, and you gave as good as you got. At one point, you'd hope that the physicist would step down from the pulpit and walk to your broken-hearted spouse there in the pew and tell him or her that all the photons that ever bounced off your face, all the particles whose paths were interrupted by your smile, by the touch of your hair, hundreds of trillions of particles have raced off like children, their ways forever changed by you. And as your widow rocks in the arms of a loving family, may the physicist let her know that all the photons that bounced from you were gathered in the particle detectors of her eyes, and that those photons created within him constellations of electromagnetically charged neurons whose energy will go on forever. And the physicist will remind the congregation of how much of all of our energy is given off as heat. There may be a few among them with their programs fanning themselves, as he says it. And he will tell them that the warmth that flowed through you in life is still here, still part of all that we are, of all that is. Even as we mourn, continue the heat of our own lives. And you'll want the physicist to explain to those who love you that they need not have faith. In fact, they should not have faith. Let them know that they can measure, that scientists have measured precisely the conservation of energy and found it accurate, verifiable, and consistent across space and time. You can hope your family will examine the evidence and satisfy themselves that science is sound and that they'll be comforted to know your energy is still around. Physical energy. According to the law of conservation of energy, not a bit of you is gone. You're just less orderly. And it ends with amen. For me, as I think back on that passage, on that discourse, and those physiological truths, once again, not only am I comforted by the many that have come and gone, the many who have transitioned, the many who were once here in physical view and are no longer, most all of my relatives, by my time in life, they're a little less organized, floating where souls float, wisping and touching, and part of all of who and what I am. And you're beloved, all part of, always and forever of who and what you are. Gotta love it. Gotta love it. Wow. All right, I promised we would bookend. Once more time, that side of the card that starts with I am. Let us this time slowly, and let me go through it once in the piece that I offer, that we want to just allow it, almost return for a moment of meditative experience at the circling in of our shared time together. Slowly, I'll do it once first. I am an infinite being on an eternal journey. Together. I am an infinite being on an eternal journey. With that, we'll say a double amen and thank you.